god, you look awful.
I know. That's the point. Welcome to Superhero Rundown. I'm Crimson, and today we're going to a different area of the world, to South Korea, for Psychokinesis. Just like with Cleverman, I don't know anything about South Korean culture other than Psy's Gangnam Style and some Marvel movies taking place there. This is not an ordinary superhero movie, and I think it deserves a lot of credit. Here's how this will work. I'll explain what's going on, since it's all in Korean. Then we will talk about some of the implications, as this came out while Avengers Endgame was in theaters. The story revolves around Shin Roo-mi and her father, Seok-hyun, and I'm sorry I botched that, as I do not know Korean. Her father walked out on her at 10 years old, and we see Roo-mi and some of the other smaller businesses being bullied so they can make a mega mall / arcade / whatever in the same place. Well, if it isn't my good friend capitalism, and by good friend I mean I want it to die. Anyway, we also meet the attorney Kim, who is representing the small business owners, and in the interim of drinking out of a spring, Seok-hyun gains telekinetic powers. And in typical fashion, he does learn a lot about them right away, but no one believes him that he has them, and Roo-mi thinks it's all a game to him. Throughout the film, Roo-mi rejects her father the way he rejected her. And it's really a story of their relationship with a small business story as a backdrop to their development as characters. Roo-mi has abandonment issues, and that is definitely at the forefront of her mind in the film. Near the end of it, her father gets arrested just to be taken out of the picture, as his powers have helped the shopkeepers a lot. Roo-mi faces down the corporation, who now has the cops on their payroll, with all her friends on top of a barricade that her father had erected to protect all of them. I don't even remember the last time I was so enamored with a film that felt different as a superhero movie. They all fight, and the shopkeepers manage to get to the roof as Seok-hyun breaks out of prison by flying out of it straight up, destroying the director of the corporation's car and saving everyone, including his daughter. After everything happens, he confronts the bad guy, punches him to death, then turns himself into the police. Which honestly, as much as I hate cops, it's a really good ending for his arc. He saved his daughter, and now he wants to be responsible. And that's what they each get out of the relationship. He becomes responsible, and Roo-mi gets her father back. After 4 years, he's released from prison, learns that the construction company never made their big mall, and the shops are now just an empty lot. But Roo-mi has opened a new restaurant, and he uses his powers to serve drinks to the patrons' delight. And the new restaurant is called Superpower Chicken. This movie is so wholesome, and it's by the same guy who did Train to Busan. Yeah, the zombie movie. As for how this was, David Ehrlich sums it up pretty well in Psychokinesis Review. Netflix and the director of Train to Busan joined forces for a very different kind of superhero movie. Boasting more in common with something like Robert Townsend's The Meteor Man than it does anything in the MCU, Psychokinesis was inspired by the 2009 Yongsan disaster, in which 6 people were killed when Seoul police raided a watchtower full of evictees who'd been pushed out of their neighborhood and poorly compensated for their trouble. But Yeon, who managed to turn the zombie apocalypse into a slapstick farce, has little interest in dredging up the tragedy of it all. For all of the spandex social realism at the heart of this superhero origin storytelling, Psychokinesis, like Train to Busan before it, really just uses the violence of class warfare as the backdrop for a comedy about a dad trying to make things right with his daughter. It definitely shows. The corporation, the working class business owners, the director woman who at one point has one of the mobsters beaten because she wasn't happy with his performance and tells him to do better. The guy goes to the final showdown with injuries on his face for all to see. And some of it is so down to earth, it defies all logic. In Netflix's Psychokinesis is one of the finest superhero movies of the decade. Karen Hahn explains how mundane it actually is. Psychokinesis is easily one of the best of the superhero movies from the past decade, largely because the world that Yeon has constructed is decidedly not super. The ramifications of Seok-hyun's heroics are immediate, as is the realization that there's something inherently silly about them to begin with. When a police officer sees footage of Seok-hyun single-handedly taking on a group of men, he dismisses it as a hoax, which is perfectly justified in reality-grounded logic. A video of a man waving his arms and a few other men falling over, i.e., a battle scene stripped of its dramatic score and flashy editing, doesn't exactly seem supernatural at all. There's no big bad, there's no big badass supervillain. It's just a corporation with a face in the director lady. But that's about it. The story is about Rumi, her father, her friends, and her fellow shopkeepers. And I think it keeps the movie grounded. Their director is Yeon Sang-ho of Train to Busan fame. Herein lies the secret of Psychokinesis' low-key maturity. Yeon makes you want to applaud Seok-hyun's realization that he not only cannot, but really should not punch all his problems away, no matter how eminently punchable men may be, by consistently focusing on the incremental evolution of Seok-hyun and Rumi's relationship. You can tell that she ultimately has more power than he does just from the scene where she takes him out to lunch at her favorite stew place. This scene is characteristically well filmed and performed. Ryu purses his lips and hangs his head while Shim walks ahead of him without looking back once to see if he's following her. Once they're both seated, they talk about the potential health risks of having superpowers. And for once, this exchange isn't a cheap way to foreshadow a plot contrivance about the biological limits of Seok-hyun's strictly imaginary powers. Instead, Rumi and Seok-hyun's dialogue functions as it should in any other drama, to develop their relationship in a semi-meaningful way. Modestly scaled and exceptionally well-realized scenes like this are why Psychokinesis is the superhero film of the summer. Superhero films have been getting bigger and bigger. It's no secret that the Marvel Cinematic Universe rewrote the book on superhero stories, coming together through multiple movies. Yeah, you could argue that the Universal monsters did it first, but when it comes to the superhero genre, most people think of Marvel. In Lincoln Mitchell's The Best Superhero Film You Haven't Seen is Now on Netflix, he expounds on why Psychokinesis is so special. Psychokinesis doesn't have the budget of an Infinity War, but as with Train to Busan, the action sequences are smartly executed, and the film has a great sense of humor about itself. Superpowers are always pretty silly, and it's nice to see a movie acknowledge that. For some reason, Seok-hyun's telekinesis requires him to dance weirdly to work. The movie also has a great villain in director Hong, whose superpower is the most realistic of all. Capitalism. She has money and connections and power. Who needs flight or invisibility when you can control governments? It's a Netflix exclusive. If you have 2 hours to kill and you want to watch a dad go to bat for his kid and her friends, I encourage you to watch it. We're in the golden age of Korean cinema between this, Train to Busan, Okja, and Parasite. Don't waste the opportunity to see other movies that kick as much ass as the Avengers, if not more. Right. I mean, I could believe the zombies, but trains running on time and going to other parts of the country very fast? Hilarious. Anyway,